Hello, I'm your friendly time traveler, here to teach you about borrowing and saving. What? You weren't expecting me? You thought it would be that other famous time traveler in the blue box? Sorry. Yeah, I know you would have preferred the other guy, but I'm the one who won't get this YouTube channel sued into oblivion. So too bad. Now most of you will never experience the freedom I have to travel through space and time. Popping back and forth? You can't do that since you don't have one of these nifty blue boxes. But if you wish, I can give you a quick peek into your future. Let's go and check on how you're doing. Off we go. And we're here. Let's take a look. Oh, oops. A little too far. Sorry. That was a little traumatic, huh? Let's just get you home. You guys shouldn't be hopping around time anyway. I mean, what if I took you back in time and you killed your grandfather? You know what that would mean. Yes, you're a psychopath. Why would you want to go back in time and kill somebody? Anyone? Nope, time traveling is not for you. You should just stay here in the present. However, if you want, you can move your money through time. That's what borrowing and saving is. Time traveling your money. For example, let's look at Ralph here right now, and future Ralph 1 year into the future. We'll say present Ralph has $100 right now. If he spent it all, future Ralph will have no money. If he saves $100, Ralph will have 100 in the future. Ta-da! The money has time traveled. You are moving your money through time. Saving moves the money you have now into the future so you can spend it then. You can also move money the other way. What if Ralph has no money right now but will have $100 in the future? If present Ralph borrows $100 now, future Ralph has to pay it back. Again, you've moved money through time from the future to the present. When you borrow, you have more money to spend now and less in the future. So why would you want to do this? We transport our money through time to even out our spending, which can make our day-to-day living standards better. Here's a simple, obvious example. Let's say Ralph gets paid $2,000 today. He knows his rent of $1,000 is due at the end of the month. He also knows his fridge will be empty in 2 weeks. Ralph could go out and spend all of his money today. He could go out and party and buy tons of stuff. He would have spent all of his money immediately. In 2 weeks, when he runs out of food at home, he'll go hungry. At the end of the month, when he can't pay his rent, he'll be evicted. While spending or consuming all of his money now might give Ralph an immediate spike in enjoyment and happiness, not having money in the future can lead to future misery. Not having food for a period of time will be difficult. Being evicted is devastating. Simply by saving some of his money for a few weeks, Ralph evens out his consumption and happiness. He doesn't get the highs of immediate spending, but he doesn't get the lows either. His day-to-day life is better. What about borrowing? Let's say the day after he pays his rent, Ralph has run out of money. Unfortunately, his car breaks down and will cost $500 to fix. He needs it to get to work. Without working, he'll get no money in the future to buy food or pay rent. His life has become more difficult now, but will become devastating in the future. So he goes to his friend and borrows the money. Borrowing helps him to avert disaster right away and minimize the negative effect of the car breakdown in his day-to-day life. However, he has to pay back the $500, meaning he won't be able to spend as much in the future. The next time Ralph gets paid, he'll only have $1,500 once he repays the loan. His rent is still $1,000 the next month, so that means he'll only be able to spend $500 after paying his friend back. Borrowing did save him from a difficult or catastrophic situation. It reduces his ability to spend as much as he usually does in the future until the loan is paid back. In this example, it's a difficult month because he usually had $1,000 after rent to spend, but now it is down by half. Borrowing lowers his future ability to spend. Ralph hasn't completely avoided the negative consequences of the car breakdown. He reduced it from devastating to inconvenient and made his future self deal with the inconvenience. Could he pay it back in smaller payments? Let's say $50 a month. Or $20? How about $10? Ralph would have had an easier time paying back small amounts every month than repaying $500 all at once. But is this fair to the person he borrowed the money from? In the example, Ralph borrowed $500 from a friend. That deprived his friend of $500 that his friend could have spent on his friend's own personal consumption needs. Depending on how long it takes Ralph to pay back his friend, the $500 is also losing purchasing power. Due to inflation, getting $500 back in the future means his friend is losing out. The smaller the payment, the longer it takes. The longer it takes, the higher the loss of purchasing power. Inflation affects how much purchasing power is lost. The higher inflation is, the greater the loss of his purchasing power. Hopefully you watched the video on inflation. I should have mentioned that at the start of this video. Just a sec. Let me pop into the future and remind you in the past. A little too far. Sorry. Sorry to interrupt, past me. Forgot to mention something in the future past. Can I interject? No problem, future me in the past. Go right ahead. Hey guys, before watching this video, watch the one on inflation. That's it? Yes. Not yet. Oh, hi. Hi. What are you doing here? I just want to remind everyone to also watch the video on compounding. That's it? Yep. Okay then. Bye. 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 What if Ralph didn't have any friends who could lend him $500? He could always borrow money from a commercial lender, maybe a bank, or put it on his credit card, or take out a payday loan. Commercial lenders are a business. They understand the loss of monetary value over time, so they'll charge an extra amount to cover inflation. This is interest. They also understand inflation will fluctuate, so they'll probably want their interest to be higher than the inflation rate just in case inflation goes up. Because they are a business, they want to make a profit. They gain nothing by lending him money and being repaid just enough to buy the same amount of stuff in the future, so their interest was increased enough to give them some profit. They are also aware that Ralph might default on his debt and not pay them back. Depending on how risky they think Ralph is, they'll probably charge more interest to compensate for the risk they are taking. So unlike a friend who might only want him to pay back the original $500 borrowed, commercial lenders charge interest and fees for their loans. The interest and fees are more than inflation because commercial lenders understand the loss of value of money due to inflation, and they also want to make a profit. A bank loan might charge 8%. Credit cards, maybe 20%. Payday loans work out to be up to 400%. Yep, up to 400% interest. What does this mean? If you borrow money and have to pay interest on the loan, you'll have less money to spend in the future. The longer it takes you to repay the loan, the more interest you pay. When present Ralph borrows $500 now, future Ralph loses $500 in the future plus the interest amount. If interest is 8% and Ralph wants to pay back $500 1 month later, interest is $3. If he wants to pay it back at $50 a month, interest is about $20. It would take him 11 months. If he pays it back at $20 a month, interest is almost $50. It would take him 28 months. And finally, at $5 a month, interest is $112 and it would take him 62 months or a bit more than 5 years. And this was an 8% loan. A credit card at 20% is even worse. Here's the amounts for them. Notice, the higher the interest rate, the higher the amount of interest paid and the longer it takes to pay off. Whenever you transport money from the future to the present by borrowing, you are taking more purchasing power away from future you than present you will gain. Ralph had no choice when his car broke down. The cost of food and rent were foreseeable, so it was easy to plan for them. The car breakdown wasn't foreseeable, but it could have been planned for as well. While Ralph had no way to know his car would break down, he could anticipate that something might happen. Maybe it would be a car breakdown, maybe he drops his smartphone in the toilet, Instead of reacting, he could plan for the unexpected by saving a little bit each month for sudden unexpected emergencies in the future. By sacrificing a little bit of spending and consumption each month, maybe $50, he transfers that money into the future for when he needs it. By building up future money, he might have had enough that he wouldn't have needed to borrow to fix his car. If he had, there would be no loan to pay back. He wouldn't have experienced any major drops in consumption. Saving a little bit each month results in a tiny drop in the ability to spend each month now, but saves him from difficult or devastating drops or the need to borrow or repay in the future. Paying back the $500 at $50 a month at 8% interest would have taken him 11 months. At 20% interest, it would take 12 months. Every month he made payments, he had $50 less to spend. If he had saved $50 a month, he would have had $500 in 10 months. Also less money to spend while saving, but not for as long. Does the time value of money affect savings? Yes, $50 in the future does not buy the same as $50 now. If Ralph puts $50 into savings now, it won't be able to buy as much in the future due to inflation. However, that only happens if you put your savings away under your mattress. You could earn interest or investment returns on your savings. If you do and your rate of return is higher than inflation, the $50 would be worth more in the future. You could buy more than you could now, especially if it compounds. Oh darn, I should have reminded you to watch a compounding video. Be right back. I'm back. Both saving and borrowing could be used to even out consumption by shifting money through time. They both result in some reduction in spending. Savings reduce how much you can spend now. Borrowing reduces how much you can spend in the future. But the main difference between saving and borrowing is this. Borrowing will always reduce your overall lifetime ability to spend much more than saving will because of the extra interest payments. Saving will always allow you to purchase more in the future if you earn interest or returns at a rate higher than inflation. If you borrow to buy something, it will cost you more for the item you bought and often longer to pay it off than if you saved up for it instead. Does this mean you should never borrow? That may not be possible or realistic. If you understand the costs and are able to differentiate between borrowing for necessity versus desire, you may choose to have your future self pay the borrowing cost. I mean, how would you ever buy a home if that's what you want if you don't borrow? What about savings? So how much do you save? What for? How fast do you have to build up the savings? I'm probably leaving you with more questions than answers. But don't worry, future lessons will cover this. I know, I've seen them. I think we have some other so-called experts coming up to talk more about how you can think about debts and savings. Then I'll be back to introduce the concept of consumption smoothing, or how to spend and save over your lifetime. See you then!
Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late. I just went on a little trip to the past with my friend and he told me he would get me back on time.
Hey, I'm only off by 5 seconds.
5 seconds is still late, but no harm done. As you can all see, the next planned video will start looking at debt in more detail. In the meantime, I want to thank you for... Hey, what's happening? Why am I disappearing?
It's like I said. Psychopath.